that went around it and positive developments that have flowed from it. Since the COVID-19 closings, our social ministry committee in the parish had not met in the first couple months. And on June 1st, the chair of it emailed a list of active and on the email list members saying it was time for her to step down and do some other projects. And then, so that was June 1st. And then right away, another member of the list, John Leary, emailed and thanked Graziella Zinn for her service. And then he shared an article from America Magazine called How Catholics Can Help Lead the Fight Against Racism, because the George Floyd killing had just happened May 25th. And he said that the article speaks to what we must consider and do going forward as a parish. And he had talked with the pastor about, sorry, no toddlers, but still things just happening. And also passed along our pastor's, Joe DeShaka, his encouragement for everyone to attend the first event in the Office of Social Justice Ministries year-long series, which was coming that Saturday. So some discussion ensued, and people said, yeah, we should do something. And one parishioner said, I agree with everyone, we should do something, but what? And I thought about it and I wrote back, I said, well, I think there's a lot we can do. And I had a lot of ideas, which was organized under education and dialogue, preaching and liturgy, and that we could do some kind of public shows of solidarity or something. We could put a sign on the church lawn or do an outdoor rosary for peace and justice. And our deacon actually and pastor kind of jumped on that last one and said, let's do that this weekend, and probably brought it to some other committees that were happening during the week or church online discussions. And within a few days, we were doing a rosary for peace and justice on our main street, which was very noisy when the cars came by, but we're right on Whaley Avenue, and I have a few pictures of it to share with you. So that was our very first of any sort of in-person event since COVID had happened on, I think that should be June 6th. It was the Saturday after the social justice first series that morning. So we, Deacon Joe got from the bishop's website or from some kind of resource like that, a peace and justice themed rosary, and people said it in our chairs, and people brought signs. I made this one, Divine Mercy, Parish Prays and Works for Justice, but and I thought I was going to be the only one who brought signs. We hadn't talked about that, but several other people brought signs, and so we kind of posted them up, and hopefully caught a few people's eyes as they went by. So that was cool. And one other thing that wasn't really officially part of our parish's work, but this guy here with Save the Post Office, Retire No Joy to Joy, that's John Leary, whose email started all this thinking and responding. So later in the summer, he organized a Save the Post Office rally in front of our local post office, and we ran into some other parishioners there. So my wife and I were there, and John's in the parish, and that's Diane. And both of these people were in our summer reading group. And that was another thing that that people immediately responded to, because I think that people realized that we needed to do some learning, that we were stuck at home, and it was a good time in the summer to think and talk and reflect. And so we read, and that was what had been one of my initial proposals, why don't we read something like White Fragility? That's what everyone's talking about. So we read White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, and 12 people ended up joining, and were pretty stalwart through 2 summer reading groups of 3 meetings each. And then when we came to the end of the first book, I mean, people were sharing ideas of things we could do, reading Deacon Art Miller's memoir book and Brian Mazengale's book on racial justice in the Catholic Church. But some people had been familiar with Latasha Morrison, who's a Protestant minister and has a book and a kind of a program of discussion groups over race around the country called Be the Bridge. And it was nice that it put it in a Christian frame and did a lot of the same kinds of things that many such good books do to kind of spur discussion. So our group was all white folks, but who ended up, Christine, who I'll mention in a moment as something that came out of this, is Caribbean American, and she was a member as well. Some people brought some friends and family from other parishes or other places outside of Connecticut, and then we made sure to avoid the Wednesdays when all the other webinars from the Office of Catholic Social Justice Ministry were happening. A lot of our people attended those. I saw Nick here tonight, and Nick was in our discussion group as well for my parish. So what that led to was that COVID was an opportunity for some online learning, and it was also an opportunity in the parish, despite all the challenges, to kind of refocus some things and think about how we do programming and activities when a lot of it has to be social distance. And it was also kind of coming together in conjunction with our parish selling off a property finally of a joint parish that really wasn't working with two properties, and with us starting the Alpha program and people getting connected in small groups. And so the deacon also asked me and Christine to think about rebooting social ministry with a more social justice, education, advocacy focus. So I started a proposal, shared it with others. And so all these people in the reading group, as we moved to the end of our reading group with our last meeting on the second book being in the first week of September, we focused it on what to do next. What can we do? And the deacon and his spouse were in our discussion group all summer. So he was kind of sharing how the pastoral plan was going on. We framed this focus for our committee, a new committee ministry on social justice and community building, we're calling it SJCB. And then after we were done with our discussion group, we had one more meeting for them and anyone else who wanted to join, kind of advertising back to everyone who had been involved in social ministry. This is going to be the rebooted committee. Let's feed in this proposal and what we want to do in this coming year. And then it was positively received at the parish council just 2 days ago this week. So I would say in conclusion that this reading group and just email discussions did a lot of things for us, and will bear a lot of fruits. I mean, we looked at ourselves, our parish, the Catholic Church, with a lovingly critical eye. We bonded. We found some like-minded people. I know that was really important for me. I sort of thought like our church isn't going to do anything. And then I'm throwing out kind of an impertinent email. Well, we could do a lot. And then people said, yeah, let's do it. Let's have a rosary. I'm like, okay. I thought only I would bring signs. I'm the only one going to a Black Lives Matter protest. No one else cares. And people brought signs saying Black Lives Matter. So it renewed my hope that there were others like me that we could work together, and we focused our energy into revitalizing a social justice committee. And then the future is our sort of open oyster with God's help. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I think it's a wonderful example of education and action combined, right? So often we tend to go read a book and settle for that, but you're obviously showing that you can do a lot more than just read a book, and that a parish can certainly move forward during this COVID time for sure. Right. So our next speaker is Yananish Ayala from Guilford St. George Church.
Thank you. Hi guys, my name is Yananish Ayala Munoz. I go to St. Mary's Church in Clinton as well as St. George Church in Guilford, where I used to help out as a peer minister, and I used to teach CCD classes for those that are getting confirmed that year. So basically over the summer and throughout the years, like we've seen a lot in social media and the news about like police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement and racism and all negativity. So I was like, what can I do during Corona that I can make a difference in the world? But obviously I can't do over a day, and I have to start somewhere. So my friend and I, we started an organization called Guilford Racial Equality Project, which we basically started in June, and we had our first event in August. And our mission is to promote racial equality by hosting educational events. So on August 10th, we had the privilege and an honor to have our first event because it was so much work. And we're all teenagers, kids in college. We have internships, jobs, and all this. So I was stressing out every night, but we had a drive-in movie. It's called The Drive-In for Justice. And we showed a movie called Just Mercy. It's a well-known movie about a Black lawyer defending a Black innocent man in the South. And basically, the drive-in movie was a success. The whole parking lot that St. George allowed us to use was full. There was 95 cars, so it was like filling using the COVID restriction. So it was a free event, but we accepted donations. We received over $2,400, and that was all donated to the greater NAACP in New Haven. And honestly, I was so happy. I cried that night because a lot of people were like, teenagers really, like, there were some people, there was a lot of negativity at one point, like, teenagers really can't do this or host an event or make a difference. But Guilford, a lot of people reached out in Guilford, and they all helped: the police officers, the men's group at St. George, Claire Nicholas, who works at St. George, and many people, businesses and restaurants at Guilford reached out and donated money. And that was one of the challenges I was afraid that I was going to face, but I didn't. So this organization, it was really hard because it was hard finding like motivated people. We all wanted to make a difference, but not everyone wanted to put the time to do it, which is like, it happens. But I did find a good, strong group that wanted to help and were motivated to make this event. So this organization is not only focusing about Black Lives Matters, but we want to help marginalized groups in general. So our next event, we want to help and talk about like Muslims, Hispanics, and moving on. So we're not just only focusing about one minority group. So like our next event, well, it's not an event, it's more of teaching. We're going to teach 2 CCD classes about racial equality and how that relates to our faith, and how, because we're in COVID, we can still do something and still do a difference, and to motivate other teenagers that we can do it. No matter what we're doing, we can find time if we really put the energy into it. One thing that I recommend is, for me, was patience. I really struggled with that because I liked, doing homework, do it the day and I'm done. But this project lasted at least like 2 months to get everything in order. And I did pray a lot. I was like, God, please help me. I really want to get the license fee for this movie. I want so many people to come. I want to make a difference. So that was definitely something that I learned over this organization, and I'm proud to be a member, and I'm glad I can share you guys my experience, and I'm excited to host other events through this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, everybody in this room, virtual room, is just so excited to hear you speak and to hear what our youth are doing. And we believe in you. We know that it's possible. You are so exciting, and we hope that you are, other churches will see you and other parishes will take your lead, because that's just terrific. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions and connections after tonight. Thank you. So next we're going to hear from Barbara Wheeler from Sacred Heart in Southbury Church. And Barbara, you need to unmute your microphone.
Okay. Hello, I'm Barbara Wheeler from Sacred Heart Parish in Southbury. Our parish is engaged in many Just Faith programs in the past. I want to show you the program that we used. If I go down here, and okay. Monsignor Donnelly, or as we know, Father Joe, asked us to consider Just Faith racial program during Lent last year. Over 80 people signed up. In February, Sacred Heart started the program, Equity, Faith and Racial Equity, Exploring Power and Privilege. The Just Faith programs are comprehensive, with outlines for weekly meetings, guidance for moderators, and homework. Meetings always start and end with a prayer, and then there's 2.5 hours packed with discussions and videos. We started with an opening retreat led by Father Joe. We had material including 3 books for faith and equity, with study material for 8 sessions. on the various topics, including white privilege, invention of race, and education. In our first session, we watched the second episode of a video, Race, the Power of Illusion. This is a powerful documentary. It's on YouTube. And this episode, Race and the Power of Illusion, is called The Story We Tell. It describes how the concept of race came into being and how these ideas served to justify American social inequities as natural and common sense. In looking back, that video was the most informative to me and also as others as citizens, as a citizen, as background on how people of color and Native Americans were treated in this country. Also, we read White Fragility. That's on the bestseller list, but we read it back in February. It's a powerful book. It's thought-provoking, and that was it. And I've had a book club with that too. Sadly, our project was closed down because of the pandemic after 4 sessions. Upcoming sessions would have included Kathy Taylor, a professor at Naugatuck Community College, and we hope to have an immersion experience by attending service in an African American church. Guest speakers and immersion days are an important part of any Just Faith program. We had challenges. Discussions of race can go in many different directions. I mean, we are for the most part, a white parish. And moderators were warned that we would probably be confronted with issues that were uncomfortable, and we were. However, the current environment of issues in racial inequality and the need for social justice, I was very thankful I participated in this program. Our other challenges was the size of our group. Most Just Faith groups are between 6 and 10. We had 17 people. We never completed a whole session as outlined by the Just Faith. What I would recommend, that I think I'd recommend any Just Faith program. This one's excellent. They have weekly newsletters, and they're doing Zoom programs also. Sadly, we didn't continue after this, and we kept on hoping, well, we'll get back in the fall. Well, that's not going to happen. So I don't know. We also had a problem that not everybody was computer literate in our group, so it would have been difficult to continue without everybody. So I definitely remain, as far as the future, hopefully I continue to strongly encourage the promotion of social justice in any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And I can echo your words. Just Faith is an absolute wonderful program. So next up we have Brenda Delgado, and Brenda and her parish has been working on Open Wide the Hearts since probably before the document came out, the letter came out. So Brenda, why don't you share with us?
Sure, thank you. We titled our project, and first let me give a shout out to Miles and Sister Claire, because they were part of the initial group, along with others that started this whole thing. And it was for multiple reasons. One, because of the Bishop Razaza conference last year. The second reason was the presentation of the pastoral letter, which was in Rhode Island, that Sister Claire got a bus together for people that wanted to go and hear that presentation. And the third reason for us at St. Justin St. Michael's was because we had merged. It had been 2.5 years, almost 3 years since we had merged. So St. Michael's, which was in the north end of Hartford on Clark Street, and St. Justin, which is also north end of Hartford, but on Blue Hills Avenue. And that merging brought together people of so many different cultural groups. I'm certain that we are the most multicultural group in the Archdiocese. So there are Haitians, Jamaicans, Africans, African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Caucasians, Cape Verdeans, Trinidadians. So you can imagine that there are multiple cultural groups. And so even though we came together for different reasons, we each decided that the focus would be on culture, not specifically on race, since we were all, for the most part, people of color in our church, but we wanted to focus on culture. And hopefully working together to better understand each other's culture would make us be able to pray better together, that our church would move forward better together once we understood all of these different cultures. So that's what we decided to do. And the project started in 2019. And we've had, unfortunately, some stops and starts in spite of our totally best efforts. But the project was designed to have one large educational session with all of the parishioners, or as many as would come. And that educational session, we hired a consultant who is the Director of Multicultural Affairs for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and also has her own consulting business. The focus was on defining race, defining color, looking at historical constructs that support racial division, and doing different exercises, very simple and inviting exercises to let people understand that we all often have unconscious bias. And so even though we did have the educational session, and we were so pleased that Archbishop Blair came to the session along with others, not as many parishioners came as we had hoped. The second phase of what we were doing, so that was the first step. The second step was to then train up to 20 facilitators from different age groups in our parish. And we have trained just about 20. There might be 16 or 18, but we have trained the facilitators. And those facilitators would then have small discussion groups within our own parish, so that each person would talk about their cultural background, that we had specific questions that we would ask each group. Each group would meet 2 or 3 times. And so we had a system set up. And then unfortunately, like everything else, COVID-19 hit, and we sort of came to a standstill. So we're in the process now of getting restarted via Zoom, and I have discovered, not a lot of our parishioners either are wanting to be on Zoom or have access to, they certainly all have cell phones, which we know can do Zoom, but they don't have, all of them don't have computers. So we've had a little bit of a challenge. Plus we lost part of our very dynamic committee. But we're moving forward and hope to finish this project by the end of this year. The project was always designed to, once we did phase 1, to have a phase 2. And phase 2 for us was then working with a sister church, a church that was totally Caucasian for the most part. And so we would have this very multicultural, diverse church at St. Justin St. Michael's, and we would have a sister church, and we would also train facilitators at that sister church. And together we would pair them up, and together we would have conversations, cultural, race-based conversations. We then we're going to, at the end of this year, we'll create something as a recommendation to the Archbishop to see what he wants to do and how we can move forward with this. But again, it was designed to have facilitated dialogue around race, different racial ethnic groups, just sitting around talking, because we all know that that's what gets people to know each other. Because we're all Catholics, so telling each other about our pathway to get to where we are and our cultural story, we thought was very important. Challenges, again, we talked about COVID-19. And attendance, again, for us has been a challenge. My recommendation would be, because this is not rocket science. This is really basic, let's come together and talk kind of thing. So my recommendation would be that anyone that wants to do that, you would start that in your own parish first, because I think we would all be surprised about the side conversations that happened in our parish, even with people that look alike. So for us at St. Justin St. Michael, between groups and among groups, there were lots of discussions, because you have strong cultural backgrounds in terms of music. I mean, we have a gospel mass, we have a traditional mass, we have a Haitian Creole mass, we have a Spanish mass. And so all of these cultures come together once a month, the first Sunday of every month. And it's not comfortable for all people. People want to almost always stay in their own lane. And so we're just trying to give them other options, that to know me is to understand me. So we're hopeful that the project will continue, that the facilitators will be able to, that we will be able to market them to go to other churches and help set up these small group conversations. So that's what we're looking forward to in 2021.
That's great. Thank you. And I think probably within this audience, you might find some parishes who'd be interested in helping you move forward with part 2 for sure.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, just a few minutes of, if anyone has any questions for the presenters, and to do that, physically raise your hand. Okay. So Fran D'Amico, please. Go ahead, Fran, I unmuted you.
Oh, thank you. Usually I start talking in mute. Barbara, I'm very excited. We have participated in things with St. Michael's, St. Justin's as well, and in particular with the Haitian community there. And I think we can provide at St. Patrick, St. Anthony, a very white parish to work with. I mean, I can't make the decision alone, but I would be very, very excited and would love to get into conversation with you. And maybe we could do that through Lynn. I'll send Lynn an email to you, and she'll send it on to you, and then you and I can just converse. Is that okay?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, that's exciting.
It is.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
questions on specific projects that you heard? Brian?
Just real quick from Brenda, was there a certain kind of resource program booklet or something for the facilitator dialogue training you used that others can use?
Yes, there was. It's currently with the trainer, but I absolutely can get you access to it. And I'll just do that through Lynn.
Okay. Deacon Vinny and then Barbara.
Actually, I have two questions, but let me address Yananesh first. How did how did your idea grow legs with the teen population, teen and college students?
So like, how did we start? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what kind of kicked it off to get youth involved?
Yeah, so the majority of my friends, they're like very active in their own colleges about social justice and race and their own religion. So like as a Catholic, like I want to put in like both in a way. So I reached out to St. George so they can help me. And then we just basically started talking, like made a group, and we text every individual person that we would think that would like to participate, and we're like, would you like to join? And we explained like things that we would potentially do, and they said yeah. Everyone said yes, everyone was excited. So basically we just started off from like a small idea, and a lot didn't think it was going to happen into like something big like this event. So it's basically also like encouraging each other and what's the word, motivating each other was a lot. And we also told him to continue doing this at college. So it pretty much branched from college being activist and all that, to also bringing it back to hometown and our religion.
And what sort of support did you get from your pastor on this? How did you kick it off?
Yeah, so we didn't have a place. So I was talking to Claire Nicholas, and then I talked to the priest, and he was like, yeah, we would love to help you host this event. The men's group in St. George as well, they helped us. They were all open hands, and they all wanted to help us on our next event. They were very eager to help. And that communication really helped because I didn't know how to, like, they did simple things, but they were so big for us, like just managing the event, like directing cars while following COVID rules and while making sure like the police were like, yeah, that's fine. It sounds something so simple, but it was so much to do that helped us for this event to come. Also in St. Mary's, I also go there in Clinton. The priest helped, actually just me in general, because I was afraid it wasn't going to work out. Like I was very stressed, obviously, to make an organization and to even have an event in the shoreline town. So he gave me a lot of like wisdom, and he was like, you can do this. Like there's a lot of things happening, but to make a difference, you really have to start today, not tomorrow. And God is really sending you, saying you could do this, you can do this. Just remember that. And you can overcome any obstacles. So with the words and the guidance from St. George and St. Mary's and the people in Guilford, honestly, helped me so much, and I felt welcome. So yeah.
Thank you.
So
May I continue with a question?
I'm sorry.
May I continue with a question for Brenda? Brenda, your focus on culture seemed very interesting to me because we have a primarily white parish also. And some of the things that I hear when we bring up race comes from the Italian American community, reminding us of some of the injustices they suffered and so forth. But I think it was Christopher Ducrot that used the bus taxi analogy that, people of color, cannot change the way they appear. So it was somewhat of a temporary thing for the Italian American community. If we started with a discussion of culture, would it be too much of a bait and switch to kind of direct that toward race? down the road?
I'm not sure what you actually, but I'm assuming there are other white cultural individuals in your parish. They're not all Italians, or are they?
Predominantly, but there are other European cultures represented.
Yes, yes. And so you're saying that if you, well, I guess the focus for you in having those discussions would be to get people to, I'm making this assumption, would be to get people to understand other people's cultures. They all can speak about their own culture,
Mhm.
but it's being sensitive to other people's culture that is the issue. So yes, they can talk about their own culture, and this is what we had to go through. And so then the question becomes, tell me what you know about what the Polish had to go through, or what the Jewish people had to go through, or what Black people had to go through. I think many people, and I'll just speak about St. Justin, St. Michael's, one of the issues is we are all Black Catholics, but we are not all the same, because my background is Portuguese, and my grandparents on both sides spoke Portuguese and came here through Ellis Island. Other people came from the South as Black Catholics. And so we have to know that each group, just like Italians, they're not all the same, they're different. And so talking about the similarities, but also understanding the differences and embracing them. They're not negative, they're positive.
Because there's a lot of unconscious bias, and I'm
Correct.
that nut.
But we can certainly talk.
Okay.
Okay. So at this time, we're going to break off into our breakout rooms, and we will do that for 15 minutes and then come back together in the larger room for any future questions. So we're going to see if technology works right and send you off into your rooms. You should receive an invitation saying you're invited to a breakout room.
Nothing yet, unless.
Okay, those that came registered late.
Your office and Clara. So we kind of talked about the question of just work in our parishes, and it was great to hear from Jan and Ash, because like the deacon, we were just like, yeah, how do you tap into youth? But it kind of realized me, some thoughts were that that experience is not unique to her and her friends. We got to kind of open up and give them opportunity to tap into that, or just encourage them that that's a possibility. So it does kind of depend upon others showing that that's possible, and they know how to kind of connect across the miles and social media to do things. So even when they're off at college, maybe Catholic parishes need to be thinking a little bit more about how, until they move somewhere else and settle down somewhere else, they're still members of our parish. So invite them to be in webinars we're doing during the year and stuff like that. You know, we shared some ways that they can be active in our other parish as well. And it is important, no matter who it is involved, to ask people directly, not just post something in the bulletin. That seemed to come out in the presentations tonight, that when people made a direct connection for a project, something could grow out of it. And then, you know, out of like Brenda's presentation, we were also thought that the theme of culture was, you know, no matter what makes up your parish, there is always that kind of, that we have similarities and unique stories, and celebrate those. And both my own parish and Clara's, you know, thought that we were going to be doing more with that. And I think the very last thing that Clara said was understanding where others are coming from. So that's a good entree into kind of being able to kind of bridge our experiences and build community.
Great, thank you. Group 7 is Terry.
Okay, so we started off with a very nice kind of theme of building bridges. So there was in each, as we went through those questions, building bridges came up, and with the recognition that particularly Nancy brought this up, but that our faith is what makes us stronger, and we can act with grace to build those bridges, and how important that is. We talked about how the letter itself that was covered in webinars was news to a lot of people. So that was interesting. And how we were, what struck us is that included the kind of the history of the Catholic Church is involved in racism. So that was good. With regard to the webinars, people felt that it was great to meet others from different parishes and to hear their perspectives. Let's see, that the group was inspired by the presentations we learned tonight, and how all the projects have a different focus. We were, many of us were particularly inspired by Brenda's focus on cultural discussions, because we all felt that that was very, very important. I hope I covered everything from our group.
Thank you. So let's go back to group number 1 with Mary. No, Mary, we can't hear you yet.
There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
One question was about, it seemed fascinating that Inanesh was able to gather this fairly large group of young people. And I sort of wondered what was behind that. And apparently that parish in Guilford has a youth minister. So many of these people would have been engaged in their parish life as high schoolers and then on to college. And that kind of filled in a question mark that I had. I wondered how she was able to gather that fairly large group of young people. And then the discussion went on to about the Hispanics, that varying experiences. Some Hispanics had said that they were very confused about why they were included in this document, because they did not think that they experienced any discrimination at all, where there were others, particularly undocumented, who did say that they felt they were victims and really experiencing some distress right now.
Great. Thank you. Group number 2 is Linda.
We had a real power group. We had both Yananesh and Brenda in our group of 4. So it was an interesting conversation. We did talk a bit about the pastoral, and Brenda commented that although the pastoral was pretty comprehensive, she was disappointed that although the bishops wrote a document in 1958 and again in 1979, and then this one in 2017, that she hadn't seen evidence of much action as a result of those documents. And also the fact that it referred to African Americans rather than Black Catholics, because the Black community of Catholics is not limited to African Americans. So, it was kind of a continuation of our conversation about culture. We talked about how difficult it is if you feel like the only person in your parish who has concerns about social justice, how hard it is to find like-minded people that can support you and that you can work with to make change happen. And we also talked about how important it is to have a safe place for dialogue, that so often there's the temperature gets hot when controversial topics come up. But if you're in a safe place where you can say, I don't understand, or I never thought of it that way, or can you please tell me more about whatever it is, and there's a safety, then real conversation can happen. And that's what we all felt was key to some of the, to resolving some of the conflict today.
Great, thank you. Room number 3 with Deacon Vincent.
Michael Rakowski is going to summarize for us.
Thank you. Well, we can't hear you yet, Michael. Hang on.
Oh,
There you go.
okay, thank you. I'm going to try, but I didn't really take any notes, so I can't really say that I'm going to capture everything. Kate, the question, first of all, was put out by a deacon, and his was, what do we think of the pastoral letter? And that really stumped everybody at this point, as far as that goes, because I don't think we looked at the pastoral letter, and Deacon said that he had looked at it today and he knew the question ahead of time. But as far as that goes, that started a little bit of conversation. Kay was in our group, and I guess she's in the same parish as Brenda. And we started talking and going down the route of culture and how big culture really takes a part of how we need to look at racism and knowing each other. And everybody agreed with what was going on and what Kay had said. I spoke up and I thought that relationships were the most important thing. The only way you can have a relationship is to develop a safe and secure place to talk about stuff. And so that safe and secure thing is what really needs to be done, so people can feel that their points and their dialogue is accepted, as far as that goes, and they're safe to say it, and that the security is that you're not going to get really put down, or you may be questioned about it, and you maybe have people say, well, they might not agree, but you still feel secure enough that you know that the group is not going to really get too excited about it. And you have to be able to broach the subject and really give and take, so that we are able to come together.
Great, thank you. Yep, dialogue, so important. Room 4, Gail.
Sister Claire is going to give us a little synopsis.
Excellent. Put her to work. Where is she? If she's talking, she's muted. You're muted, let's see.
Oh, wait, I just saw it up the top. Okay. All right. Okay, we had a good conversation. First talking about the pastoral letter. We found that very powerful, that the bishops so clearly noted their own complicity in racism in the past and into the present time, and asked pardon for that. We thought that was a good way to begin, that we're all in this together. When we were trying to look back at the past webinars, 2 in the group noted that they were very struck by Brenda's account of her father's funeral and the lack of welcome that her family felt. And that certainly not something from the distant past. These are things that still happen in our churches. There was a lot of interest in the idea of sister parishes getting together and sharing their cultural experiences, and not only with Black Catholics, but with the other minorities within the parish, and even an all Anglo parish may have people with different ethnic backgrounds. So it's a means of getting to know one another that is valid for any parish. But the idea of twinning together to have these activities was really positively received. And then we ended with the idea that with all the racial unrest that we've experienced in the last few months, it's very clear to us now that if there's going to be change, the time is now. We can't let this just go on and on and on without doing something very positive. And seeing the beautiful initiatives just in these parishes that we heard about tonight, like the Just Faith program and the Sacred Conversations. One member of the group said that phrase of Deacon Miller, that nobody can be a bystander. That's very true for us now. We all belong to a parish. We can all be involved in some initiative that reaches out and gets to know one another so that we can be more brothers and sisters together. And we're not going to be bystanders. We need to be very active in this.
Thank you. And the last group was John Ryan's group.
So we were a few old guys, and kind of we had some expression of tiredness, but the sentiment basically was we're going to keep on going. I mean, everybody said the same thing in that regard. And hearing people today talk about restarting, picking things up after COVID, shut things down, and discourages people. It discourages us. So that's what we got. We heard the young people enthusiastically getting a bunch of people together, and that's a different kind of experience, generally speaking, for us. So, but it was encouraging, and we can look forward to doing that. And I think showing our wisdom at times, I think, is what we talked about.
Great, thank you. So certainly a lot of different dialogue in the different rooms, for sure. If you haven't read the pastoral letter, it is easy to find online at the bishop's website, usccb.org. It is a very short read, and you could order a hard copy too. We have some copies in the office if you like one. It's not very long. It's very readable, so we encourage you to read them. That is, our webinar series are based off of that pastoral letter. Before we end, I have a very quick poll I'm going to pull up to the screen and ask you to participate in regards to your interest in future projects. So something should come up on your screen with an opportunity to choose an answer. If you're interested, if you're not, just.
Do, right? Again, that's next week.
And while you're doing that, I would like to just give a shout out again to our presenters. This event has been recorded, not your small group work, but the panelists have all been recorded, as well as our final remarks towards the end. So it will get sent out to everyone who attended and everyone who also registered but did not get to attend today. So thank you. This helps us with future planning. Now, in case you're curious, those are the results. But, stay tuned. Next week, if you haven't registered, we have our next webinar, September 30th, the Asian American Experience. And then I'd like to extend an invitation to our annual dinner. We will not be having a regular webinar in October, but we have an annual dinner, which this year is now called an annual gathering because it's without the dinner. It's virtual, and we have a wonderful keynote speaker who's going to be talking about making our parishes more welcoming and diverse. So please stay tuned for that. You can find all that information up on our website. Well, at this point, thank you again for attending, and I'm going to invite Deacon Vinny to close us off in a prayer.
Loving Father, we give you thanks and praise for these servants you've sent into your vineyard, especially seeking justice for the oppressed, especially our brothers and sisters of color. Strengthen your spirit in them and grant them the courage and wisdom needed to root out racism in all its forms. Bless their works, encourage them in adversity, and protect them from all evil. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. St. Padre Pio, pray for us.